This is a walkthrough of making a gateway server for your VMware environment. So we're starting out by making a virtual machine. We're calling it Gateway. Nothing special with the name. Guest OS family, Windows, and then it's Windows 2016 Server 64-bit. And next, we're using our primary data store since we only have one. We're going to accept the defaults for CPU, memory, hard disk, and then just double checking that the hard disk is thin provisioned, which is the default. And then we have one network adapter, which by default is on the external network. And it's just double checking our settings, then finish. Now, since this is going to be a gateway server, we do need to add another NIC to it. So we'll go back in, edit settings, add network adapter. We're going to put this one on the internal network, which will be our private network we're setting up. For host device, for the CD DVD, we're going to change that to data store ISO file, point it to our ISOs folder, grab the Windows 2016 ISO, and save that. Now that we have it pointed to the ISO, we can power on our virtual machine. Once the power on process starts, we're going to want to switch our interface, and we're going to be switching over to VMware Workstation to do the management from this point forward. So launch Remote Console will launch VMware Workstation as long as it's installed. And then once in VMware Workstation, you'll see the IP address in the left-hand column. It's our gateway server. Now we can go into the server config. So we're accepting the defaults. We're installing now. And we're going to say, I don't have a product key at this point. We're going to select Windows Server 2016 Data Center with Desktop Experience. If you do not select Desktop Experience, you'll get Windows Core, and you'll be very sad because you cannot make Windows Core a gateway. Accept the Microsoft terms, and select Custom Install. Select Next, and this will go through the install process. And as the virtual machine comes back up, you will be prompted to set the initial password. It needs to be a complex password, so uppercase, lowercase, and a symbol or number. Password 01 with a capital P works just fine for our test environment, but you would never want to use something like that in production. And then it prompts us to log in. We'll use the password we just set. As it boots the first time, we're going to go in and we need to install VMware Tools because VMware Tools has not been installed yet, which is why our screen size is showing up as so small. So once you've noted in the VMware pull down on the top to install VMware Tools, it will show up as a mounted DVD drive. Double click on the icon, that'll click off the installer. And usually it'll do a pop under, which is rather frustrating. So if you see it flashing down in your toolbar, that's where it is. We're going to select Complete and Next and Install. And it'll run through the install process. and finish. And of course we're going to have to do another restart because this is Windows. Log back in. We're going to go to local server when server manager loads. Now we're going to go through the configurations to get this one ready to be a gateway server. So we see our two NICs, one of which will show that it grabbed DHCP from the local network, which is its default setting. The other one isn't able to grab anything because there's nothing on that network. We're going to rename the Dunwoody network to external. We're going to rename the other network that is not able to pull a DHCP address to internal. And this way, the two networks are defined on our NICs, which will come in handy later. We're going to turn off DHCP, and this is on our internal NIC. And then we're going to set its IP address to 192.168.79.254 with a subnet mask of a /24, which is 255.255.255.0. Then we're going to go back to our external, and all we need to do on that one is turn off IPv6. And close the network window there, now that we have our internal defined and with proper IP addresses. We select the refresh, which is that sort of recycle button looking piece on the top menu. That will then refresh the interface, and you should see assigned by DHCP for external, and the internal should be set to 192.168.79.254. Next, now that we have valid networking, we want to change our time zone to Central Time, and then go over to Internet Time to actually set the time so that we are synced. And update now, and OK. And OK. That'll bring the time to current on this server. Any future servers that are part of a domain will get their time from the domain controller, but we're wanting to have this one setting its time to the outside world. We also turned off IE Enhanced Security, which will turn off the nags anytime you load a browser. And for the sake of our labs, we are turning off the firewalls for the private network and public network settings. And last but not least, we're going to rename the server. So we're going to go into change. We're going to give it the name of gateway. And OK. And yes, we know we have to reboot the server after we install this. Change the name. The server will be rebooting. Okay, once we're rebooted, now we need to add the service in order to make this an actual gateway server. Because right now we just have a server that has two NICs. So we're going to go into Manage, Add Rules and Features, go into Next, go into Next, Next, scroll down to Remote Access, Next, Next, Routing, because we're wanting to select NAT, Add Features, Next, 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 and install. And this will take a little bit to go through its installer. Once the installer completes, we can go to Tools, go down to Routing and Remote Access, and we'll now see that in our Routing and Remote Access it shows the gateway server with a red dot in front of it, and we need to select that and go Configure Routing and Remote Access. Select Next. We're going to select NAT and Next. And this is where naming your NICs comes in handy, because we need to select the external interface, and Next. And then Next, Next, Finish. It'll take a little bit for this to finish. And then once it does finish, it will come up with a green icon over your server name. That's showing that the routing and remote access services are properly running. If you expand it, you'll be able to actually see that it's working on IPv4 and IPv6, even though we only have IPv4 defined on our server. Now we just want to make sure that our connectivity is working properly, so open a browser, pull up an external website, and we've verified that we have connectivity to the outside world. Until we build another server on our network, we won't be able to test the pass-through, but if you've followed these steps, your gateway server should work just fine.